The Symbolic Universe, an analysis of the tarot as an interface for holographic and simulated realities. Introduction, Ancient Symbols and Modern Cosmologies. This report will investigate the provocative thesis that the tarot, a 15th century system of archetypal symbolism, can be interpreted as a sophisticated metaphorical framework, a user interface, for understanding and navigating two of the most radical contemporary theories of reality, the holographic principle and the simulation hypothesis. At the heart of this inquiry lies a paradigm-shifting question: what if the universe, at its most fundamental level, is composed not of matter and energy, but of pure information? This analysis will explore whether the tarot's intricate structure, symbolic language, and narrative arc uncannily prefigure such a reality, serving as a potential key to its underlying code. The investigation rests upon three distinct, but conceptually convergent pillars. The first is the tarot itself, which will be examined not as a simple divinatory device, but as a sacred book of symbols and a map of the soul's journey. Its purpose, in this esoteric view, is to represent the elemental, human, and divine intelligences that constitute the architecture of experience. The second pillar is the holographic principle, a theory from the frontiers of theoretical physics which suggests that our familiar three-dimensional reality is merely a projection from a two-dimensional information surface. This model presents our existence as a grand illusion cast from a two-dimensional source, challenging the very nature of space and volume. The third pillar is the simulation hypothesis, a philosophical argument positing that our perceived reality is, in fact, an artificial, high-fidelity computer simulation created by a technologically advanced civilization. This report will first establish the independent architecture of each of these three systems. It will then weave them together into a comprehensive synthesis, examining the profound parallels in their structure and function. Finally, it will culminate in an exploration of the significant philosophical and metaphysical implications this synthesis holds for our understanding of consciousness, free will, and the very fabric of existence. Part 1. The Architecture of the Tarot. 1.1 From Parlor Game to Esoteric Key, a condensed history. The documented history of the tarot reveals a fascinating evolution from a mundane aristocratic pastime to a profound esoteric system. Its origins are firmly rooted in 15th century northern Italy, while the earliest decks, known as Carta Triumphi, Cards of Triumph, and later tarocchi, were created between 1440 and 1450 in the courts of Milan, Ferrara, and Bologna. These decks were not designed for divination, but for complex trick-taking card games, a popular amusement among the nobility. The iconic trump cards, which would later become the major arcana, were allegorical illustrations of characters, virtues, and forces common in medieval and Renaissance culture, such as the emperor, the pope, and death, likely representing figures in triumphal processions. The transformation of the tarot into a tool for divination and esoteric inquiry was a much later development, gaining significant traction in France around 1780. This pivotal shift was largely catalyzed by figures like the French pastor Antoine Carte de Gébelin, who, in his 1781 publication, made the influential, though entirely unsubstantiated, claim that the tarot was a repository of ancient wisdom from the Egyptian Book of Thoth. A decade later, Jean-Baptiste Alite, known as Attila, published the first deck explicitly designed for divination, incorporating astrological and alchemical symbolism. This marked the beginning of the tarot's new life as a mystical object. During the 19th century occult revival, the tarot was fully integrated into Western esoteric traditions. Secret societies, most notably the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, founded in London in 1888, systematized the tarot's symbolic language, viewing it as a comprehensive map of universal archetypes and esoteric knowledge. They formally linked its structure to other mystical systems, particularly the Kabbalah, further solidifying its status as a sacred text. This era culminated in the creation of the Rider-Waite Tarot in the early 20th century. Conceived by Golden Dawn member Arthur Edward Waite and illustrated by Pamela Coleman Smith, this deck was revolutionary. Unlike its predecessors, which often had simple, unillustrated pip cards for the minor arcana, Smith created rich, scenic illustrations for all 78 cards, making their complex symbolic meanings accessible to anyone, not just trained occultists. The tarot's historical trajectory is not merely a chronicle of changing uses. It is a case study in how a symbolic system can attract and accumulate layers of profound meaning. The evolution from game to esoteric key was a process of both projection and discovery. Occultists did not invent new images, but rather reinterpreted the existing allegorical figures, projecting onto them complex metaphysical frameworks like the Kabbalistic tree of life. The fact that these archetypal images could so powerfully support such intricate layers of meaning suggests that their symbolic resonance was present from the beginning, waiting to be activated. The tarot's history, therefore, demonstrates its capacity to function as a mirror to our subconscious. A symbolic structure so deeply aligned with the patterns of human experience that it can serve as a canvas for our most profound inquiries into the nature of the self and the cosmos. 1.2 The Major Arcana, a system of universal archetypes. The heart of the tarot's narrative and symbolic power lies within the 22 cards of the Major Arcana. These cards, also known as trumps, are distinct from the four suits of the minor arcana. They represent major life events, significant spiritual lessons, and universal archetypes that are fundamental to the human experience. Each card embodies a core principle or stage of development, such as the Fool, beginnings, potential, the Empress, nurturing, creativity, the Emperor, structure, authority, the Hermit, introspection, wisdom, death, transformation, endings, and the World, completion, integration. These archetypes are not bound by a specific culture or time. They are universal patterns that resonate across human history. This universality finds a powerful explanatory framework in the work of Swiss psychiatrist Carl Gustav Jung. Jung's theory of the collective unconscious posits a layer of the psyche shared by all of humanity, containing inherited, universal patterns of thought and experience known as archetypes. From this perspective, the tarot can be understood as a tangible tool for accessing this collective psychic reservoir. The cards function as potent symbols that can activate these deep, shared structures within an individual's mind, bringing unconscious knowledge to the surface. A tarot reading, therefore, becomes a dialogue between the individual's conscious mind and the vast, archetypal wisdom of the collective unconscious. The esoteric structure of the major arcana is further deepened by its systematic integration with other mystical frameworks, most significantly the Hermetic Kabbalah. Beginning with 19th-century occultists like Eliphas Levi, A correspondence was established between the 22 cards of the major arcana and the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. This mapping, in turn, linked each card to one of the 22 paths connecting the spirit divine emanations on the Kabbalistic tree of life, a central diagram in Jewish mysticism that represents the map of creation and the path of return to the divine. This intricate system of correspondences provides a profound metaphysical architecture for the archetypal journey depicted in the major arcana, transforming it from a simple sequence of images into a structured map of cosmic and psychological forces. 1.3 The Fool's Journey, Mapping the Path of Consciousness. The 22 cards of the major arcana are not a random assortment of archetypes, but form a coherent and sequential narrative known as the Fool's Journey. This allegorical story serves as a powerful metaphor for the journey through life, charting the course of a soul's evolution from a state of primordial innocence to one of integrated enlightenment. Each card represents a distinct stage, a crucial experience or lesson that an individual must encounter and assimilate to achieve wholeness. The narrative arc can be broadly divided into 3 phases. The beginning, the outer world, card 0-7. The journey commences with card 0, the Fool. He represents pure potential, innocence, and spontaneity. A newborn soul ready to embrace all experiences. He stands at a cliff's edge, oblivious to the dangers and hardships ahead, symbolizing a leap of faith into the unknown. In this initial phase, the Fool encounters the fundamental building blocks of the external world and the self. He meets the Magician, I, and the High Priestess, 2. Representing the conscious will and the unconscious potential, the primary active and receptive forces of creation. He then learns about societal structures through the Empress, 3, and the Emperor, IV, the archetypal mother and father figures who represent nature and civilization, nurturing and order. He is initiated into formal belief systems by the Hierophant, V, and learns about relationship and choice through the Lovers, 6. This phase culminates with the Chariot, 7, where the Fool, now a young adult, develops a strong ego and asserts his will upon the world, achieving initial success through discipline and control. The turning inward. The inner world, card 8-14, having established a place in the world, the Fool's journey shifts from external conquest to internal trials. He learns that willpower alone is insufficient and must be tempered with inner strength, 8, compassion, and patience. He withdraws from the world as the hermit, 9, to seek deeper wisdom and inner guidance. With the Wheel of Fortune, X, he confronts the nature of destiny, cycles, and the larger cosmic patterns that influence his life. This revelation leads him to Justice, 11, where he must take responsibility for his actions and understand the laws of cause and effect. He then learns the profound lesson of surrender with the Hanged Man, 12. Discovering that by relinquishing control, he finds a deeper support from within. This period of introspection culminates in the transformative experiences of death, 13, which signifies the necessary shedding of the old self, and temperance, 14, where he learns to integrate opposing forces within himself to find balance and harmony. Confronting the shadow and attaining wholeness. Cards 15-21. The final and most profound stage of the journey requires the Fool to confront the deepest aspects of his subconscious and the chaotic nature of reality. He faces the Devil, 15, representing his own shadow, ignorance, materialism, and the chains of addiction and negative patterns. Release comes through the tower. 16. A sudden, cataclysmic event that shatters his ego and false structures, leading to a painful but liberating revelation. From the rubble, he finds hope and serenity in the star. 17. He must then navigate the illusions, fears, and mysteries of the deep subconscious with the moon. 18. Before finally emerging into the clarity, vitality, and enlightenment of the sun. 19. This leads to a final rebirth in Judgment XX, where he sheds his old self completely and answers a higher calling. The journey culminates with God 21, the world, or the universe. Here, the Fool achieves total integration and wholeness. He has successfully synthesized all the lessons of his journey, recognizes his profound connection to the cosmos, and participates fully and joyfully in the dance of life. This narrative structure is not merely a linear progression from A to B, it is fundamentally cyclical. The final card, the world, depicts a figure encircled by a wreath, a symbol of both completion and the eternal cycle of life. The four figures in the corners of the card are the same ones found on the Wheel of Fortune, explicitly linking the end of the journey back to the turning of cycles. Having achieved the wisdom of the world, the individual does not cease to exist but becomes an enlightened fool, ready to step off a new cliff, this time with full awareness. The journey is not a one-time event but a spiral of development, a process of iterative learning and growth. This cyclical structure provides a powerful analog for computational processes, such as rerunning a simulation with new parameters, or for cosmic cycles of creation and destruction, a theme that will become central to our synthesis. Part 2. Reality as Information and Projection. 2.1 The Holographic Principle, the universe on a 2D surface. The holographic principle is a radical and counterintuitive theory emerging from the frontiers of string theory and quantum gravity. At its core, it proposes that the three-dimensional reality we experience, the universe of galaxies, stars, and people, is a projection, or hologram, of information that is fundamentally encoded on a distant, lower-dimensional boundary, typically conceived as a two-dimensional surface. As one of its chief architects, physicist Leonard Susskind, articulated, the three-dimensional world of ordinary experience is a hologram, an image of reality coded on a distant two-dimensional surface. This implies that what we perceive as volume is an illusion, and the true reality is inscribed on the surface of the universe's boundary. The genesis of this mind-bending idea lies not in abstract speculation, but in the concrete physics of black holes. In the 1970s, physicists Jacob Bekenstein and Stephen Hawking were grappling with the thermodynamics of black holes and made a startling discovery. They found that a black hole's entropy, a physical quantity that measures disorder and, by extension, its information content, is not proportional to its three-dimensional volume, as one would intuitively expect. Instead, it is directly proportional to the two-dimensional surface area of its event horizon, the boundary beyond which nothing can escape. This was a profound clue from nature. It suggested that all the information about every object that has ever fallen into a black hole's 3D interior could be completely and losslessly described by data inscribed on its 2D surface. Gerard T. Hooft and Leonard Susskind later generalized this concept from black holes to the universe as a whole, resolving the black hole information paradox and giving birth to the holographic principle. This principle fundamentally reframes our understanding of the universe's basic constituents. In this model, matter and energy are no longer the primary substances of reality. Instead, the most fundamental building block is information. At the quantum level, this information is described in units called qubits. According to the theory, these qubits do not fill the volume of space, but are spread out across the two-dimensional boundary surface. Our entire three-dimensional world, with all its physical laws and phenomena, is thought to emerge from the complex quantum entanglement and fluctuating entropy of these qubits on that distant surface. This has led some theorists to propose models of a universal consciousness, where information is stored on a nested hierarchy of holographic surfaces, suggesting that individual consciousness is not merely a product of the brain, but is deeply interconnected with this universal information field. To point to the simulation hypothesis, living inside the code. The simulation hypothesis is a philosophical proposition which posits that our entire perceived reality, from the subatomic to the cosmic, is in fact an artificial, computer-generated simulation. This idea, while popularized in science fiction like The Matrix, has been given serious consideration in academic philosophy, most notably by Nick Bostrom of Oxford University. In his seminal 2003 paper, Bostrom formulated the simulation argument, which presents a trilemma, a set of three propositions, one of which must be true. Assuming that a technologically mature post-human civilization would have access to unimaginable computing power, the trilemma is as follows. Extinction. The fraction of human-level civilizations that reach a post-human stage, one capable of running high-fidelity ancestor simulations, is very close to zero. This implies we will likely go extinct before reaching this technological capacity. Disinterest. The fraction of post-human civilizations that are interested in running simulations of their ancestors is very close to zero. They would have the capability but, for ethical, practical, or other reasons, would choose not to. Simulation. The fraction of all people with our kind of experiences that are living in a simulation is very close to 1. The logic behind the third proposition is probabilistic. If even a small number of advanced civilizations run a large number of ancestor simulations, the total number of simulated conscious beings would vastly outnumber the real, biological beings in the universe. Therefore, a randomly selected conscious entity, like oneself, is statistically far more likely to be one of the simulated multitude than one of the original simulators. The idea that our perceived reality is an illusion is not new. It has deep roots in philosophical and spiritual traditions across the globe. It echoes Plato's allegory of the cave, in which prisoners mistake shadows on a wall for reality. It resonates with the Hindu and Buddhist concept of Maya, the cosmic illusion that veils the true nature of existence. It also finds a striking parallel in ancient Gnosticism, which held that the material world is a flawed or malevolent creation by a lesser deity, a prison from which the soul must escape. The simulation hypothesis is, in many ways, the modern, technological articulation of this ancient skeptical intuition. The proposed mechanisms for such a simulation vary. One scenario involves a full simulation, where everything we know, including our own consciousness, is nothing more than lines of code running on a vast cosmic computer. Another scenario is closer to the brain in a vat thought experiment or the premise of The Matrix, where real, Organic consciousnesses are plugged into a simulated environment, their senses fed with data to create the illusion of a physical world. 2.3 Distinctions and convergences, a critical comparison. While both the holographic principle and the simulation hypothesis radically challenge our conventional view of reality, it is crucial to understand their fundamental distinction. The holographic principle, as it is understood in physics, describes a natural law of our universe. The projection of our 3D world from a 2D surface is not an artificial act, but a fundamental property of space-time and quantum gravity, an inherent feature of the cosmos itself. The simulation hypothesis, in contrast, posits an artificial construct. Our reality is not the product of natural law, but of a deliberate creation by an intelligent agent, a programmer or a post-human civilization. One is a description of physics. The other is a metaphysical hypothesis about our ultimate origins. Despite this critical difference, the two theories converge on a revolutionary and central idea. The reality we experience is not the fundamental, base reality. Both models demote our perceived world to a secondary, generated phenomenon. More importantly, they both propose that this generated world emerges from a more fundamental layer composed of pure information. This convergence on an information-based ontology is the critical bridge that allows the tarot to be meaningfully connected to both theories. The logic proceeds as follows. The holographic principle states that our three-dimensional reality emerges from two-dimensional quantum information, qubits and their entanglement. The simulation hypothesis states that our perceived reality emerges from computational information, bits of code. Both models, therefore, replace a traditional matter-based ontology with an information-based one. Reality is, in essence, code. The tarot is a system composed entirely of symbolic information, archetypes, numbers, elements, and narrative structures, designed to model reality, consciousness, and the human journey. If reality itself is fundamentally informational, then the tarot ceases to be merely a metaphor for reality. Instead, it becomes a system operating on the same fundamental principle as reality. It is a language of symbols designed to interface with a universe whose very substance is informational. This reframes the tarot as a potential tool for decoding, reading, or perhaps even interacting with the underlying source code of existence, regardless of whether that code is the product of natural law or intelligent design. Part 3. The tarot as an interface with a coded reality. 3.1 Reading the hologram. Tarot as a tool for accessing encoded information. If the universe operates according to the holographic principle, then all information is fundamentally interconnected and non-locally available. The information describing the entire volume of space is encoded on its boundary, suggesting a deep unity where every part reflects the whole. Within this framework, a tarot reading can be conceptualized as a practical method for accessing a relevant slice of this universal, holographic information field. The tarot becomes an instrument for making the implicit knowledge of the universe explicit. The process of a reading, the setting of an intention, the shuffling of the deck, and the drawing of the cards, can be seen as a focusing mechanism. It is an act that tunes the reader's consciousness to a specific query, thereby pulling a meaningful pattern from what theoretical physicist David Bohm called the implicate order, a concept of an undivided, enfolded wholeness that aligns perfectly with the holographic model into the explicit order of the card spread. The random shuffle introduces a probabilistic element, but the final selection is guided by an causal connection, or synchronicity, between the querent's inner state and the universal field. The very nature of a hologram, wherein a small fragment contains a blurred but complete image of the whole, serves as a powerful metaphor for this process. A small spread of just a few cards can provide a surprisingly comprehensive and insightful reflection of a complex life situation. This demonstrates a holographic principle in action. The microcosm of the reading accurately mirrors the macrocosm of the querent's life and its position within the larger cosmic web. The tarot, in this view, functions as a spiritual technology. It acts as a translational device, converting the abstract, high-dimensional quantum information of the holographic field into a symbolic, archetypal language. This language, composed of images and narratives honed over centuries, is one that human consciousness is uniquely equipped to comprehend, interpret, and integrate, allowing us to gain access to a deeper layer of reality. 3.2 Archetypes as operating system. The major arcana as the simulation's foundational code. Shifting the lens to the simulation hypothesis, the tarot's structure takes on an even more literal interpretation. If we are living inside a computed reality, that reality must run on a set of foundational rules, a kind of cosmic operating system. The 22 archetypes of the major arcana can be compellingly interpreted as the core components of this very system. They are not just metaphors for experience. They are the programmatic code that defines the parameters of that experience. In this model, the archetypes represent the fundamental elements of the simulation's design. They are the core character classes, for example, the magician, the empress, the primary game mechanics, for example, the Wheel of Fortune, which could function as a random number generator for fate, the immutable environmental laws, for example, the Emperor, representing the fixed structures and rules of the simulated world, and the prescripted narrative events, or cutscenes that every consciousness is likely to encounter, for example, the Tower, Death. A compelling case study for this interpretation can be found in online fan discussions of the television series From, where characters are trapped in a mysterious town that operates on inexplicable rules. Viewers have meticulously mapped the show's characters to specific tarot archetypes, suggesting that the characters are not acting with full agency, but are being played according to a predefined symbolic structure that dictates their roles and fates. This analysis frames the archetypes as the literal, underlying code that defines the possibilities and limitations for entities within that simulated reality. This connection is further reinforced by the fascinatingly recursive modern trend of using artificial intelligence to generate new tarot art and interpretations. In doing so, we are using our own primitive simulations, generative AI, to interpret and create variations of a symbolic system that might, itself, be the foundational code for our own, more advanced simulation. This act highlights the deep structural resonance between archetypal systems and computational logic, suggesting they may be two different expressions of the same underlying informational principles. 3.3 The Fool's Journey as a Simulated Path, Navigating a Prescripted Developmental Arc. Within the framework of a simulated reality, The narrative of the Fool's Journey can be recontextualized as the intended developmental path or the main questline for a consciousness evolving within the simulation. It is not simply a metaphor for life. It is the designed curriculum, a complete cycle of learning and integration programmed into the system to evolve a consciousness from a state of naive potential, the fool, to one of integrated wholeness, the world. Each card in the major arcana can be seen as a necessary level, a tutorial, or an experience module that must be encountered and successfully completed to advance. For example, the Hierophant V represents the module for learning the simulation's dominant societal rules, traditions, and belief systems. The Lovers 6 is the module for relationship dynamics and value alignment. The Hanged Man 12 could be interpreted as a puzzle room or a necessary pause state, where forward progress is halted until the player learns to look at a problem from a radically new perspective. The Tower 16 functions as a dramatic, system-wide event, a glitch in the matrix or a forced patch update that shatters the player's old worldview to allow for a necessary paradigm shift. This interpretation suggests that while we may experience localized free will in our moment-to-moment choices, the overall trajectory of our psycho-spiritual development is guided, or at least strongly influenced, by this archetypal map. The tarot, then, ceases to be just a mirror and becomes something akin to a walkthrough or a strategy guide for the game of life. It reveals the underlying structure of the developmental program, allowing a conscious player to navigate the simulation's challenges more effectively and align with its ultimate purpose, the attainment of wholeness and completion represented by the world. The following table provides a direct mapping of the Fool's Journey onto the language of a simulated or gamified reality, illustrating the powerful correspondence between the archetypal stages and programmatic functions. Pipe Major Arcana Card Pipe Archetypal Stage Pipe Potential Simulation Analog Pipe Pipe dash 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 pipe dash 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 pipe dash 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 pipe Pipe 0. The Fool Pipe Innocence, New Beginnings Pipe New Player Character Generated. Tutorial Level Start. Pipe I the Magician Pipe Manifestation, Willpower Pipe Player acknowledges tools abilities. Learning to manipulate in-game resources. Pipe 2. The High Priestess Pipe Intuition, Unconscious Knowledge Pipe Accessing Hidden Lore. Unlocking intuitive subroutines. Pipe 3. The Empress Pipe Nurturing, Creativity, Abundance Pipe Entering a Fertile Zone. Resource Generation and Creative Mode activated. Pipe IV. The Emperor Pipe Structure, Authority, Rules Pipe Learning the Physics Engine and Rules of the Simulation. Pipe V. The Hierophant Pipe Tradition, Belief Systems Pipe Joining a Faction. Learning the established social protocols and beliefs. Pipe 6. The Lovers Pipe Union, Choice, Values Pipe Co-op Mode Enabled. Critical Moral Choice Point in Narrative. Pipe 7. The Chariot Pipe Control, Willpower, Victory Pipe Mastering a Skill. Achieving the first major boss battle victory. Pipe 8. Strength Pipe Inner Courage, Compassion Pipe Leveling Up Emotional Resilience. Taming Inner Beast Subroutines. Pipe 9. The Hermit Pipe Introspection, Guidance Pipe Entering a Secluded Area for a Wisdom Quest. Finding an NPC Guide. Pipe X Wheel of Fortune Pipe Cycles, Fate, Turning Points Pipe Random Number Generator RNG Event. Introduction of a new questline or variable. Pipe 11. Justice pipe cause and effect. Truth pipe facing the consequences of past actions. Karma system calculation. Pipe 12. The hanged man pipe surrender. New perspective pipe entering a puzzle room. Pausing the game to re-evaluate strategy. Pipe 13. Death pipe endings. Transformation pipe character respec or class change. End of a major chapter. Pipe 14. Temperance pipe balance. Integration pipe skill synthesis. Merging opposing factions' abilities into a harmonious whole. Pipe 15. The devil pipe bondage. Materialism pipe encountering a debuff or addiction mechanic. Being trapped by a negative feedback loop. Pipe 16. The tower pipe sudden upheaval. Revelation pipe system crash. Glitch in the matrix. Forced update that shatters old worldview. Pipe 17. The star pipe hope. Inspiration pipe finding a save point after a crisis. Receiving a hope buff. Pipe 18. The moon pipe illusion. Fear. Subconscious pipe navigating a fear level. Discerning reality from illusion in a distorted environment. Pipe 19. The sun pipe clarity. Joy. Success pipe achieving a major breakthrough. Unlocking a golden age or high success state. Pipe XX. Judgment pipe rebirth. Absolution pipe final character assessment. Shedding old skins for a higher level form. Pipe 21. The world pipe completion. Integration pipe main questline complete. Game over. Screen leading to new game plus. Pipe 3.4 Divination and probability. Querying the simulation's source code. This information-centric framework completely reframes the act of divination. It is no longer about predicting a fixed, immutable future written in stone. Instead, a tarot reading becomes a probabilistic query of the system's current state and its most likely future trajectory. The cards act as an interface to read the data of the present moment and extrapolate the probable outcomes based on the simulation's underlying code, the archetypes. This aligns with a compelling idea articulated in online discussions, that a simulation would likely not be entirely random, but would contain fixed points in the narrative that are reachable by a number of different paths. A tarot reading, in this context, serves to reveal which path an individual is currently on and where it is most likely to lead. It is a diagnostic tool for navigating the simulation's branching timelines. This concept resonates powerfully with the principles of quantum physics, where reality is understood as a field of multiple potential futures existing simultaneously as waves of probability. These possibilities remain in a state of superposition until an act of observation or measurement collapses the wave function, causing one specific outcome to manifest. A tarot reading can be seen as just such an act of observation. It momentarily freezes the dynamic system of a person's life, allowing for an examination of the most probable outcome based on current energies. However, in line with the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, the very act of observing the system inevitably changes it. By gaining knowledge of a probable future, the querent is empowered to make new choices that can alter that future. The perceived accuracy of a reading, therefore, is not a product of magic, but a reflection of two factors: how well the symbolic query, the question and the spread, interfaces with the system's data, and how skillfully the reader interprets the probabilistic output displayed by the cards. The tarot becomes a sophisticated tool for data analysis, translating the complex variables of a life situation into a comprehensible symbolic report on its probable evolution. Part IV. Philosophical and Metaphysical Implications. 4.1 Consciousness, Free Will, and Determinism in a Symbolic Universe. If our reality is indeed governed by an informational code, whether holographic or simulated, it forces a profound re-evaluation of the age-old debate between free will and determinism. The tarot, when viewed through this lens, presents a fascinating paradox that may point toward a resolution. On one hand, the system can appear highly deterministic. The Fool's Journey lays out a seemingly preordained path, and the archetypes function as fixed laws or character scripts. A reading can seem to reveal an inevitable outcome dictated by the underlying code of the simulation. On the other hand, the entire modern practice of tarot is built upon the premise of empowerment and conscious choice. Readers and querents use the cards not to submit to a fixed fate, but to gain the insight necessary to change their path. The tarot is seen as a tool for self-discovery that reveals possible timelines and potential futures, thereby granting the individual the agency to consciously choose which one to manifest. It does not predict what will be, but illuminates what could be, depending on the choices made in the present. The synthesis of the tarot with these informational theories of reality suggests a model of compatibilism, the philosophical view that free will and determinism can coexist. In this model, we operate within a deterministic system defined by its fundamental rules, the archetypal code, the physics of the simulation. This is the framework represented by cards like the Emperor structure and the Wheel of Fortune, fated turning points. However, within this system, our individual consciousness and choices act as the critical variables that determine which pathways are actualized. This is the agency represented by cards like the Magician, Will, and the Lover's Choice. A tarot reading, therefore, becomes the mechanism that bridges these two realities. It reveals the current state of play within a deterministic system and the probable outcome of the current trajectory. By making this information conscious, it empowers the agent, the querent, to exercise their free will and make a new choice, thereby altering the trajectory. Free will, in this context, is not the ability to break the rules of the system, but the conscious ability to choose one's path within the system. The tarot is the tool that makes us aware of both the system's rules and our power to navigate them. 4.2 Gnostic Echoes, the Demiurge, the Flawed Creation, and the Quest for Gnosis. There exists a profound and startling resonance between the modern simulation hypothesis and the tenets of ancient Gnosticism. The Gnostic worldview, which flourished in the early centuries AD, held that the material reality we perceive is not the true, divine reality. Instead, it is a flawed, illusory creation, a cosmic prison, fashioned by a lesser, ignorant, and sometimes malevolent deity known as the Demiurge or Yaldabaoth. This ancient metaphysical concept is a direct philosophical precursor to the contemporary technological idea of being trapped within a simulation created by an imperfect, or even indifferent programmer. The central goal of the Gnostic spiritual path was to achieve gnosis, a direct, intuitive, and experiential knowledge of the divine that would allow the soul to awaken from the dream of the material world and escape its confines to return to a higher, true reality. This quest for awakening is a perfect parallel to the popular science fiction trope of characters waking up from a simulated reality, as famously depicted in films like The Matrix. This connection is not merely thematic. Some scholars, such as Russell Sturgis, have proposed that the tarot itself is a Gnostic artifact. In his book The Spiritual Roots of the Tarot, he argues that the deck contains a hidden Cathar code, a secret formula left by the Cathars, a medieval Gnostic Christian sect, for escaping the flawed world of the demiurge. In this interpretation, the Fool's Journey is recast as a transformative path to achieving Christ consciousness, a program for ascending from the material prison to the kingdom of the good God. Viewed through this Gnostic lens, the tarot becomes more than just a tool for navigating the simulation. It becomes a potential key to transcending it. It is a system designed to induce gnosis. By working with its archetypes, an individual can begin to recognize the patterns and structures of their illusory reality, to see the code for what it is. The tarot, in this light, is a manual for awakening, a guide for the soul's liberation from its holographic or simulated prison. 4.3 The role of the observer, co-creating reality through interpretation. The emergence of quantum physics in the 20th century irrevocably shattered the classical, Newtonian model of a purely objective universe existing independently of the observer. The famous observer effect demonstrated that the very act of measuring a quantum system fundamentally changes the properties of that system. This principle suggests that consciousness is not a passive spectator of reality, but an active participant in its creation. This quantum principle can be applied directly to the practice of tarot. The reader and the querent are not simply passive recipients of pre-existing information. Their consciousness, their intention, their beliefs, and their act of interpretation are all integral parts of the process. They are actively participating in collapsing the wave function of infinite possibilities and co-creating the reality that the reading both describes and helps to bring into being. In a holographic model of the universe, this role becomes even more profound. If consciousness is not localized within the brain, but is a fundamental aspect of a universal, interconnected field, then a tarot reading is an act of this universal consciousness reflecting upon itself. The cards serve as a mirror, a symbolic language through which the universe can communicate with itself, facilitated by the focused intention of the individual. The ultimate implication of this synthesis is that if reality is a participatory hologram or a responsive simulation, then the tarot is a powerful tool for conscious creation and manifestation. The process works by aligning our personal quantum signal, the coherent frequency generated by the fusion of our thoughts and emotions, with a desired outcome vividly represented by the archetypal imagery of the cards. This focused intention sends a clear signal into the universal information field, influencing the probabilities and helping to manifest the chosen reality. The tarot, therefore, transcends its role as a passive diagnostic tool. It becomes a practical technology for manifestation, an active interface for programming, not just reading, the informational substrate of our universe. It is an instrument for selecting and energetically charging a desired future from the quantum field of all possibilities. Conclusion: a grand synthesis of symbol, science, and self. This analysis has traced the parallel architectures of the tarot, the holographic principle, and the simulation hypothesis, revealing their ultimate convergence in the revolutionary concept of an information-based reality. We have moved from the tarot's origins as a 15th-century card game to its esoteric interpretation as a map of consciousness, and then placed this map against two of the most advanced cosmological models of our time. The result is a compelling synthesis, where the tarot, far from being an archaic superstition, emerges as a remarkably coherent and sophisticated symbolic system for interfacing with a reality composed of code. Whether our universe is a natural holographic projection or an artificial computational creation, the tarot provides a powerful and resonant language to describe and navigate our experience within it. It functions on multiple levels simultaneously, as a map of the system's fundamental rules, the archetypes of the major arcana, as a guide for its intended narrative of conscious evolution, the Fool's Journey, and as a practical tool for querying its probabilistic outcomes and influencing its trajectory, divination and manifestation. This synthesis does not seek to scientifically prove that the tarot works, nor does it aim to validate modern physics with ancient mysticism. Rather, it highlights a profound structural and metaphorical resonance between disparate modes of human inquiry, the intuitive and symbolic on one hand, and the mathematical and philosophical on the other. It suggests that these different languages may be describing the same underlying reality. This exploration re-enchants our vision of the cosmos, not by resorting to supernatural claims, but by revealing a universe of breathtaking complexity and elegance. It positions human consciousness not as a random, ephemeral byproduct of a meaningless material universe, but as an active, integral, and perhaps central participant in a reality woven from information, meaning, and symbol, a reality for which the tarot may be the most elegant instruction manual we have yet discovered.